Welcome everyone. Today we are here for the Society of Thoracic Surgeons General Thoracic Surgery Database User Group call for Monday, October 18th, 2021, post AQO. I think Carol and I and the rest of the STS staff are still in recovery mode. We hope you guys enjoyed AQO this year. So we'd love to hear your feedback. So please fill out those surveys and just let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback about AQO this year. On the call with me today, we've got myself, Carol Crone from the STS. We also have Ruth Raleigh, our GTSD consultant. And from our IQVIA team, we've got Joe, Melanie, Michelle, and Steve. So thanks everyone for joining me today. As usual, if you have any questions, please submit those via the Q&A function. I think we're going to be shutting down the chat here shortly. So again, just submit any of your questions via the Q&A, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. We also have the raise hand function enabled. If you'd like to speak or if you need to clarify anything, just raise your hand and we'll unmute you, and just make sure your microphone is enabled, and we could have a little conversation if we need to. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Our agenda today, just real quick, welcome and introductions. This day, really brief. I have a STS announcement. Then we'll discuss, review the mortality percent missingness thresholds, a little post-AQO conversation. And then we will, Carol will cover preparing for harvest close. We'll have an IQVIA update, and then we'll end the session today, in the call today, with your usual feedback. If you have submitted a ticket, or if you have a question for IQVIA, if you've already submitted a ticket, if you could please include that RITM number in your Q&A, that would be helpful, and the IQVIA team could go ahead and start looking into your ticket and have some feedback for you by the time we get to questions at the end. All right, so our important notice, I'm sure as you are all aware, the fall 2021 harvest does close this week. The file submission deadline is Friday, October 22nd of this week at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So get those files in no later than 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, please don't wait till the last minute. You never know. Murphy's Law, story of my life. So please do not wait till the last minute. Again, Friday, October 22nd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And this harvest report will cover surgery dates up through 6/30/2021. If you choose to opt out of the harvest, you need to send in your opt-out form by Tuesday, October the 26th. And that opt-out form can be found out on the STS website. It's located on the harvest schedule page, the harvest information and instructions page. I've included a link here, but if you do need to opt out and you can't find the form, just shoot me an email and I can point you in the right direction. All right, for our post-AQO update, most importantly, your feedback matters. Obviously, you know, the big thing that we've been discussing lately has been the spring and fall 2020 analysis, and all of the participants that did not get a star rating due to the current mortality percent missingness methodology. So I just wanted to announce that beginning with the fall 2021 analysis, this harvest that is closing this week, a new methodology will be implemented to calculate the mortality percent missingness threshold. So I'll get into more detail here in just a little bit. Before we get started, before I delve into the new methodology that's going to be used, I just want to review, make sure we're all on the same page in terms of our terminology. So I did present on this at AQO, but again, I just want to review with you all. Major analyzed procedures, I want to clarify the difference between a major analyzed procedure and the minor non-analyzed procedures. So we have two types of major analyzed procedures. We have those that are required and those that are not required. So again, our major analyzed required procedures are those confirmed lung cancer resections and those confirmed esophageal cancer resections. So these procedures here. These procedures are risk adjusted and benchmark data are provided. The other type of major analyzed procedure that we have are those that are optional. These are not required procedures. You can choose to submit these procedures if you like. So, and these optional procedures include the thymus, mediastinal mass, myasthenia gravis, the tracheal resections, and the hiatal hernia and GERD. So those are these, and I just have a screenshot here. Those are these procedures here. Now with these major analyzed, these optional procedures, benchmark data are provided, but there is no risk adjustment for these optional procedures. The other type of procedures that we have in the thoracic database are our minor non-analyzed procedures. So our minor non-analyzed procedures are accepted into the database only if you choose to collect and submit them. Just know that if you do choose to collect and submit these minor procedure records, the required fields on save checks are applied to these records. Also, if you do choose to submit these minor procedures, they are not risk adjusted and there are no benchmark data provided. So you can submit them, but again, we do not provide any risk adjustment or any benchmark data. Also, just a reminder, any concomitant procedures, if a procedure that is considered minor or optional is done at the same time as an analyzed procedure, then it should be included on that same data collection form. Again, that is for the concomitant procedures. All right, so as I stated, beginning with this fall harvest, the fall 2021 harvest that is getting ready to close, we are implementing a new percent missingness methodology. So just to review the old methodology and how it was calculated. Of course, this is from the spring and fall 2020 analysis and the spring 2021 analysis. As many of you are aware, due to this current methodology, we had about a third of our participants, a very high number of our participants were excluded from getting a star rating. And obviously that is not the goal of the General Thoracic Database. We don't want to exclude a third of our participants. Our goal is to get everyone a star rating, include everyone. Our goal is not to exclude a third of our participants. So just to review the old methodology. So the old methodology, the missing data thresholds were calculated based upon the total population eligible for reporting. And this included all records that were submitted by a participant. So the denominator included all of your lung cancer resections, esophageal resections, and those optional procedures if you chose to submit them. So if any one or more of the operative mortality fields were missing or coded as unknown, the record was considered as incomplete and was excluded from analysis. And again, we're looking at the mortality discharge status and the mortality 30-day status. Participants must have met the percent missing threshold for each calendar year, whether full or partial, based on the harvest reporting period, starting and end dates. So for example, that fall reporting period missingness threshold is calculated on the last and first 6 months of the calendar years. So just to review, the fall 2020 reporting period included OR dates of July 1, 2017 through 6/30/2020. So if a participant's missingness excluded 2% for the last 6 months of 2017, they did not receive a composite rating or risk adjusted results. And also if the participant's missingness exceeded 2% for the first 6 months of 2020, then they did not receive a composite rating or risk adjusted results. Obviously, with a third of the participants being excluded, we needed to change that. We heard from you all, the task force had a lot of meetings, we met with DCRI, but we knew that we needed to change this methodology. So for the new methodology that will be implemented with this fall 2021 analysis, mortality thresholds of 2% will be applied specifically to the composite population only. The mortality threshold calculation will consider both the lung and esophageal cancer resections combined. So again, the denominator will include your lung and esophageal cancer resections only. The mortality threshold calculation will not be applied to the optional major procedures or the minor procedures. And again, those optional major procedures include the hiatal hernia, the GERD procedures, the tracheal resections, and the thymus mediastinal mass resections, of course. So again, those optional procedures will not be included in the denominator for your percent mortality missingness threshold. Third, the percent missingness will now be calculated on a rolling 3-year time period. So as in the last analysis, we looked at calendar years. Moving forward with this fall 2021 analysis, we'll be looking at a rolling 3-year time period. So, for example, the fall 2021 harvest has a reporting period of July 1, 2018 through 6/30/2021. The percent missingness thresholds will be applied as follows. Year 1 will include July 1, 2018 through 6/30/2019. You must have a 2% or less missingness for this time period. And year 2, July 1, 2019 through 6/30/2020, same. You must have 2% or less missingness for that year. And year 3, July 1, 2020 through 6/30/2021. You must have 2% or less missingness for that time period to receive composite results for the reporting period. So again, the difference with this new methodology, we'll be looking at the composite population only, the lung and esophageal cancer resections. The optional procedures and the minor procedures are not included in the denominator. And instead of looking at calendar years, we'll now be looking at a rolling 3-year time period. And again, we'll be looking at those individual years as indicated on the slide here. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this afterwards. So, but again, this new methodology will be implemented in the fall 2021 analysis. And just real quick, I just included the definition: if one or more of the operative mortality fields, mortality discharge status and 30-day status is missing or coded as unknown, a record is considered as incomplete and will be excluded from the mortality analysis. So again, I did receive a couple of questions after AQO about these fields. Now, we're not looking at the last follow-up mortality status or last follow-up date. We're looking at the mortality status at discharge and the mortality status at 30 days from surgery. Also, I thought it might be a little bit helpful if anyone's like me, I need to hear things as well as a visual. So I put together a simple flow chart of preparing your data for analysis from IQVIA to DCRI. Excuse me. Take a drink of water. But again, just a little visual, simple flow chart, just to give you some idea of how things happen from the time the harvest closes until the time your data gets to DCRI. So the harvest is closed, and the snapshot that once the harvest is closed, IQVIA takes a snapshot of the data. So after the snapshot of the data is taken, IQVIA identifies records that are to be included, excluded, or flagged in the data file sent over to DCRI for analysis. IQVIA excludes minor procedures and flags records missing one or more of the required fields. So harvest is closed, snapshots taken. The participant data file is prepared at IQVIA. Once the snapshot is taken, IQVIA looks at that takes the data file. Record exclusions are implemented. The first step, IQVIA minor procedure only records are excluded from your data set. Once these minor procedure only records are excluded from your data set, then records missing required fields are flagged. And of course, we have some exceptions to this. We have our ECOG and other exceptions, and those are indicated in the training manual. After records missing required fields are flagged, everything's packaged up nicely, nice little pretty bow sent over to DCRI. So the data file is sent to DCRI for analysis. Once DCRI gets the data file for analysis, they unpackage it, throw it into all of their programs. The first step, DCRI excludes any records missing one or more of the required fields. So any record that's missing one or more of the required fields are not included in your denominator for your mortality percent missingness. So again, once those records are excluded that are missing one or more of the required fields, the next step, DCRI applies percent mortality missingness methodology. Excuse me. Once that methodology is applied, the next step, the final data set is sent into analysis. Once the final data set is sent into analysis, as long as you meet the 2% mortality missingness threshold, your data set's included in the analysis. And then the final step, all of the remainder analysis criteria is applied. The composite criteria is applied, and all of our composite criteria for the lung composite and the esophageal composite is outlined in the analysis overview. So I hope that visual helps just a little bit. Just to give you, again, a simple visual of how the flow of data from IQVIA over to DCRI and how the exclusions are applied. And again, I hope it's somewhat helpful. That's all that I have from the STS perspective. Next, I'll turn things over to Joe for his IQVIA update. Joe?
Great, thank you, Leanne. Good afternoon, everybody. To have a few items to go over today, starting with a release that we did last week on Wednesday. Leanne, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. STS 7400, this was an issue where the race multi, the multi-select variable for race, was giving error messages when it should not have been. So what was happening is that the user had submitted acceptable responses for the variable, but the validations were triggering when they should not have been. So that has been fixed. However, if you are an upload user, if you're still seeing those errors on your Harvest summary report, please send an email to our tech support team and we can help to clear those errors for you. It does require a manual refresh, so we just need you to let us know so that we can check that for you. And then if you are a direct data entry user, you are able to go in and to your records directly and just hit the save button at the top, and that will clear the errors for you. So the issue has been resolved, but you might still see some lingering effects if you run the Harvest summary report. So just let us know if that's something you're encountering. Next slide. We do have some known issues to discuss. The release date is upcoming. We don't have a specific date for you just yet, but these are items that are being worked on related to direct data entry validations, STS 7157. We have received reports that the current critical errors on the form for direct data entry users is cumbersome and can disrupt the site's workflow. So we are working with the STS to address those concerns and make some updates for you. On the participant dashboard, the non-analyzed dashboard report, STS 7995, we had received a report that the results in the participant dashboard when viewed on the website were different from the results from the same report if you exported it to Excel. That should now be resolved and should no longer be an issue. STS 7348 to the missing variable report. The status 30 days after surgery variable will be updated so that the unknown selection, which is Harvest code 3, will display as missing on the report for you. STS 7050, the missing variable report is incorrectly flagging the LFU date and LFU mort stat variables as missing when they are not applicable based on the demographics form version. So that what that means is that the missing variable report saying that you should have these even though the demographics form is prior to when those variables were added to the data collection form. And so those will be cleared in our next update. STS 7100 for version 5.21.1 records, the missing variable report is incorrectly flagging race multi even when it's answered. So there are still some other issues related to that race multi variable that are still being worked on as evidenced here. And so that will be fixed in the next update as well. STS 7278, the MVR will be updated to include the COVID-19 temp code and temp date fields when those are missing so that you'll be alerted to that. And then finally, STS 7302, we did receive a report that a site was seeing a larger than expected denominator for the GERD patient alive 1 year after procedure variable on the missing variable report. The cause of this has been identified and we will be applying a fix for that in an upcoming release as well. All right, those should be all the items I had to discuss today. There is a full list of known issues and enhancements provided for you in the library, so feel free to check the library for that information. And then as usual, if anything that you have reported today, anything that you have reported was not discussed here today, please rest assured that we are looking into it, and we will be looking into additional issues to bring to your attention in the next call. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
All right. All right. So STS IQVIA tech support, you all are very familiar with this. I see a question in the Q&A. What was the email address to notify of race multi-select error? So contact STS tech support at IQVIA.com. Again, this is the support plan. And when you do contact tech support, please include your 5-digit participant ID number. Excuse me. When contacting tech support as well as STS, it just makes our lives a whole lot easier, and we can a little bit quicker to respond. A list of resources that are available to you out on the STS website. We have, again, STS tech support at IQVIA.com, STS National Database Feedback Form, and then a list of resource documents that are available to you out on the website. If you can't locate what you're looking for, please just contact me directly. My email is ljones@sts.org. My phone is here. If you can't find what you're looking for, just email me directly. I can point you in the right direction. If you have any database operational questions regarding your contacts, questions regarding payment invoices, questions regarding your participation agreement, please reach out to STSDB@sts.org. Also, if you have questions regarding access to the platform, your user ID, passwords expired, again, please reach out to STSDB@sts.org. Upcoming webinars. We have our next monthly webinar scheduled for November the 10th at 2:30 Central Time. Our user group call scheduled for November 24th is going to be canceled. Carol and I will be off getting ready for Thanksgiving. I'll be busy cooking all day that day, as well as all just thinking about food all day long and getting very excited. I love Thanksgiving. So we will cancel that user group call on November 24th, and then our next monthly webinar is scheduled for, we'll pick up again the next monthly webinar on December the 8th at 2:30. That's all that I have. I know, Carol, did you have, Carol was going to touch on some preparing for harvest close, but did you want to take the questions first, Carol?
So let's go through. I'm going to just, hi, everybody. I'm just going to do a quick poll here. If everybody could try to see the poll on their screen. 2 questions. I wanted to kind of use this webinar to go over preparing for harvest close, but I already provided an on-demand video on the AQO platform. So I just want to know how many people watched it or are planning to watch it. And if you wanted, depending on the answers that we get, I don't want to make everybody stay on who doesn't really need to see it again. So I'm just going to let this run a little bit. If folks would just please answer it. And then we could probably go through the questions. And then those folks who want to stay on certainly can, and we can go through a quick review and answer any specific questions they have. And I just want to give everybody enough time to provide their response. Maybe that's all we're going to get. Okay. I'm going to close it in a few seconds. So if you haven't responded yet, please do. Okay. So it looks like most people didn't watch it or are planning to watch it. We have 7 folks who would like to stay on. So let's go through the Q&A, and then if these 7 folks and whoever else would like to stay on, they certainly can afterwards, and we'll go through this and then answer any questions. So we could do the Q&A now.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our first question from Priya, can you please confirm what the required fields are for analysis or where I can find them? So yes, ma'am. I'm actually going to pull over on the screen. Can you still see my screen, Carol?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yep. So this is the 521 data collection form. So the required fields required for record inclusion are these blue underlined fields. So we have age, gender. So you can just take a look at the data collection form, race, admission status, payer. All of these blue underlined fields are required for record inclusion. History of cardiopulmonary disease, history of vascular disease, history of endocrine GI renal disease, history of cancer. So all of the required fields are underlined and highlighted, or underlined and in blue here on the data collection form. Also, I do have a 521 list to get over to Melanie for posting in the IQVIA library. I believe the 241 list is out there. So I do need to get that over to Melanie and get that posted in the library. But in the meantime, again, all of the required fields are in blue, underlined and in blue on the data collection form. Let's see here.
Leanne,
Yes, ma'am.
while you have that up, one of the questions further down is about ECOG score. Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure. Would you like to tackle that one, Ruth?
Oh, sure. So if you look on the form, if you want to pull that one back up, ECOG
Yes.
score should be underlined in blue. However, if you look in the training manual, because there was no NA option, I think it's up a little bit there.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way.
That's all right. Because there was no NA option available for ECOG, and you're not allowed to input ECOG score unless it's documented by a care provider. So a patient or a person on the patient's care team who physically saw them. There was no way to indicate NA as in it wasn't collected. So what we've done for this version is that your records that do not have an ECOG score will not be excluded from the analysis. So if you don't have an ECOG score, just leave it blank. Don't make one up or imply one, and the record will be included.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ruth. All right, next question. When will we get the report back and how can I see what is missing or need to be corrected? I am new to thoracic. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. So when will we get the report back? Are you talking about the fall 2021 analysis or the spring and fall 2020 and the spring 2021 analysis has been released? So that data is out there. The fall 2020, yeah.
I wonder if they're talking about like the report from IQVIA, like when they're looking at their
Yeah.
data quality.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Tamara, if you could clarify, and we can also, if you want to stick on, since you're new to thoracic, I think sticking on after, once we go through how to prepare for the harvest close, I think that would be, we'll be able to get a lot of your questions answered if you're able to stick on with us here once we get through these questions. And then Blair, I think you just touched on this. Will the ECOG score impact the overall percent of missingness? No, ma'am. ECOG is not going to be, is not one of the required fields utilized for the percent mortality missingness calculation. And yes, Tamara's talking about the IQVIA results. And again, we can touch on that right after. Let's see here. Simone says the race was showing as a missing variable. So that's referring to some of the, one of the items that Joe was discussing. So Joe, I think you answered that question, correct? Or clarified?
Yeah, again, yeah. So it will show up as missing. It was triggering incorrectly. If you're looking at your harvest summary report and you're still seeing it there, let us know and we can clear those for you.
When discussing missingness today, you mentioned that all lung cancer patients must have all data correctly entered. However, for the two most recent STS reports, the only patients you provided, the only patients you provided us was patients who had lobectomies, patients in whom segmentectomies were done to provide cure, plus leave patient with more lung were excluded from analysis. So my question is either, why can't such patients be included in analysis? Or if not, why must they contain all the data you require in patients who undergo a lobectomy? Okay. Going back here. Oh, Ruth, did you want to answer this one?
No, I just don't know how to use the buttons. I apologize, Liam.
I'm sorry. All right, so let me read this again. Sorry, Doug, that's a lot. When discussing, as you mentioned, all of lung cancer patients. So the population is the lung and esophageal cancer resections. So the composite population is going to be the population used to calculate the percent missingness.
Hey, Leanne,
Yes,
I'm just
ma'am.
wondering, I think we had a list with the CPT codes, right?
Right.
Do you have that list handy?
It's in the overview.
That might be helpful.
Yeah.
And I think when we say cancer, we mean primary cancer.
Right,
resection.
primary cancers, right.
Yeah, not metastasis.
I had it open. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's Doug.
That's all right. I can take the next one while you're looking for it, or
Okay.
I can read the next one.
Yep, that's fine.
Next question, I think this is going to be for IQVIA. It says, direct data entry users can't leave the ECOG score blank because it won't let us click the complete icon. They sent this to IQVIA and they said they can't change it related to the data specifications. Did you want to take that one, Melanie or Joe? Because I think that's something we asked.
I can take it. Sorry,
Okay,
this is Melanie.
thank
I was
you.
double muted.
No problem, thank you.
So that is one of the fields that we are, and I think Joe covered it in the review. There is an item where we are going to be making changes for required fields that are currently set to critical errors, and we will be downgrading those to, I believe, error. I'm trying to pull up the list to just go through and just re-verify ECOG. So I'm just pulling that up just to confirm, but we do have that, and we did get the go ahead to make those changes to those required fields. So I'm just double checking on the ECOG.
Okay,
And I
thank
will
you.
respond back.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave that question up there. And Leanne, it looks like you have the screen pulled up.
Yes, ma'am, I do. So Doug, again, for the composite populations, you can find this in the overview. So again, here the population, the procedures for the lobectomy population. And then we have the same for the esophagectomy population. So these are the populations that will be used to determine the percent messiness.
Yeah, and then the next part of the question is, why must they contain all the data you require in patients who undergo a lobectomy?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because we need complete data on patients if you're going to enter them into the registry, so that we can provide appropriate benchmarking back to everybody and have the STS aggregate be correct. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, next, let's see, direct data entry. Can we leave the ECOG score blank? Did we just
Melanie's checking on that one and she'll answer it.
Okay, perfect. I didn't mean to delete that question, Mel, so it's in that answered folder if you still need to refer to it. So
Yeah, I'll update it there.
All right. Let's see here. Also, AQO mentioned 2021 audit. Which year records are analyzed, 2019 or 2020? Are you referring to which are going to be included, which records are included in the 2021 audit? So we did the last half of 2019 and the first half of 2020. Is that correct, Carol?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yep, that's what I thought. So the 2021 audit includes records from the last 6 months of 2019 and the first 6 months of 2020, if that's what you're asking, AJ. When Ruth says a missing ECOG score will not hold a patient out of analysis, is that only for the 521 version, or is it applicable for the 341 version? It's applicable to both, to 341 as well as 521. Do you know when the audited sites will receive their audit outcome reports?
I can take that one, Leanne. It's Carol.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've received, the audit isn't complete for all of the sites yet. They are near completion, almost done, and it's looking pretty good. The results are coming back. We're just waiting for some feedback from our senior leadership, the council operating board, and our workforce chair, regarding a few minor operational questions. And then we'll be releasing those reports. So I'm hoping within the next month, we should be able to get some of those reports out. More information will come. Emily Conrad is over the audit this year. So if you have any specific questions, you could email her, and I'll put her email in the chat box.
Thanks, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Whitney. Is there a date for the harvest following the October harvest? So I do not have, which Carol and I need to work on. I don't have the spring 2022 harvest close date yet. So those 22 harvest close dates will be coming very, very soon. So we need to discuss those and get those harvest dates posted. So more information about those 2022 harvest close dates coming very soon, Kelly. Ruth, this looks like one maybe for you. If a patient dies after 30 days mortality check, do I capture as discharged alive, died after discharge? It will not affect our mortality, correct, since it is after the 30-day window, and or should I not capture the patient died after discharge?
I can do some double checking, Dia. I don't want to misspeak. I think you can put in the discharge or the mortality date without any issue, but I want to make sure that I give you good information on the discharge status. So I'll follow up with you.
Thank you. From Kurt, will a letter be sent to the surgeon representative and primary data manager addressing the change in missingness calculation? So, but yeah, Carol, I believe, I think Dr. Fernandez, I think we should. So definitely announcing that the new methodology will be used for that percent missingness calculation. So I can talk to STS surgeon leadership and get an announcement out to the surgeon representatives.
There's a task force call next Monday, maybe.
Yep.
That would be when we could find out for sure how we're going to communicate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kurt. Are audits performed for current year, or do they ever encompass previous year's data entry?
Yeah, they're typically, this is Carol, they're typically performed on the previous year's data. So normally what would have happened is we would be auditing 2020 data this year. But because we skipped the audit last year due to COVID and the warehouse transition, we skipped auditing 2019 data. So that's why we encompassed the last half of 2019 and the first half of 2020. Also, we were curious to see if there was any issues with data accuracy related to the COVID impact at hospitals. So that's why we did the 2 separate years as well. But in 2022, we will be auditing this year, 2021 stat.
Yep. So templates are going to be shared during AQO. Where can I find them? So I do have some templates that I need to get to Emily. Emily is out today. Like I said, we're all in post AQO recovery, but I did have some data managers share some templates with me. So Emily will get those posted this week, and they will be available in the content library within the AQO platform.
Yeah, I guess we should talk about that further too, Leanne, because that platform shuts down on Friday.
Right.
So we may want to make them available in another way as well. I don't know what the templates are, but we can talk about it maybe.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Let's
Kelly,
see.
and I can take this question if you'd like.
Sure.
So the question is, if surgery is performed for primary lung cancer, but final pathology says no cancer, do we still document CPT codes for the procedure, but put in a no for primary lung cancer resection performed? I think it's going to depend on the clinical scenario. So if the patient had neoadjuvant chemo and radiation and the cancer was completely treated, you would still capture that case and you would still use a lung cancer diagnosis code. However, if the surgery was performed for suspected primary lung cancer, like no biopsy, no treatment, and then wasn't a lung cancer, that would not be a case that you would have to enter into the database. But if you do choose to enter it into the database, you would not code lung cancer as the category of disease for that case because it was not a lung cancer. So if you have additional questions about a specific case that looks like that, feel free to send me something through the FAQ inbox. I'll probably need your pathology note and your, pre-op HMP, et cetera, but I'm happy to take a deeper dive into a case.
Great. Thanks, Ruth. And speaking of FAQs, we have our core group call this week, so we'll be getting some information. If you're waiting on an FAQ, we have our core call this week, and Ruth will be following up with you. So those answers are coming. So thank you for your patience. We had to push the call back a week due to AQO. So thanks for your patience this month. We appreciate it. It's been a crazy month for sure. All right. I'm not seeing any additional questions come in, Carol. Did you want to go ahead? We've got about 15 minutes, and we can go ahead and for those that want to stick on, we can go over the, preparing for harvest close. For those that are familiar. By the
Okay,
way,
so I'll start with this, Leanne, and for those who want to jump off, feel free. I'm going to go through it. We only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, and then if we have any questions, I'm happy to take those the last 5 minutes. So I've logged in. This is me. I've uploaded, a couple .bat files. I don't have access to the uploader section, so I'm not able to see the initial uploader report where I would get things like critical values where certain records may not have been accepted in, if there was a structure issue with those records, or if there was some critical error in those records, or even if the .dat file had a structure issue. If you do get critical errors on upload, see if it's something that you can fix on the vendor in your vendor software. If you're a vendor user, you're the only one who would have an uploader access. If it's something that you can't fix, then you need to reach out to IQVIA or your vendor, STS tech support at IQVIA.com, and they'll work with you to get those critical errors fixed. So let's just imagine I'm sitting at my desk at work, and I have my files have been successfully uploaded, and now I'm going to get ready to clean it up. I'm going to go into these operational reports, which you're very familiar with, and there's 3 reports here that I'm going to be concerned about. We have the missing variable report, a harvest summary report, and the participant dashboard. The missing variable report is going to give you a list of the variables, and it will tell you your a number of records who have that variable missing where it should be collected. So where there was a parent to it, it could be that there was a parent to it and you answered the parent, but you didn't answer the child, or it could just be something, that you missed accidentally, or it could be a value that has a number and does not have an option for you to choose NA. So we'll go through this report, and then we have the harvest summary report, which is kind of a snapshot of the system validations on all of the active records within a certain time frame. And we have the participant dashboard, which is your non-analyzed data results, and it's kind of like cumulative data, and we're going to go through that as well. The first report I want to look at when I start cleaning up my data is going to be the harvest summary report. The reason I care about this harvest summary report so much is because it's going to tell me, it's very similar to your data quality report. It's like the first section of your data quality report. It's going to give you, going to tell you where you might need to go back and fix your data in your vendor software if there's a logical issue. If you coded a patient one way, I'll use an example from adult cardiac. If I coded the patient as having, being on preoperative dialysis, and then I coded that patient as being a new renal failure patient, that's a concern because the patient can't be a new renal failure complication related to surgery if they were on dialysis prior to surgery. So it's those types of checks. And I'm going to show you exactly where those checks are at. Annie from Michigan did a great review of the checks that we have in the library, and I'm just going to point out where that's at. So first thing I'm going to do is I go into the harvest summary report. At my site, I prefer to work in small time segments. I like to clean things up in smaller increments. So I usually look at a month's worth of data just so I can make sure that I'm kind of, I'm not working in too large of time frame and I don't get overwhelmed. So for purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to look at January 1st through January 31st, and I'll hit apply parameters. Now I already loaded the reports up here in different tabs. Let's say I hadn't done that. It's going to take a second to load. And I just say I want to pull this report out so I can run all of these reports together. I would go to view and then new window, and it will open this report up here in a new window for me. And then I can easily go back here and I can run another report. And then I could have all three of my reports up here at the same time. So I'm going to start with my harvest summary report. A couple things I will look for. This, thankfully, I have no outstanding validations. If I did, you would see things. I'll see if we can go over to adult cardiac here. And you see things like errors and warnings. Errors have a little bit higher severity. Let's see here. I forgot that general thoracic site was all cleaned up, but let's say we have this harvest summary report. We can see our outstanding warnings, our outstanding validations. I'm more concerned about my warnings, or if there were errors, I'd want to clean those up first. I just click on that and it shows me all of the records that have warnings on them. This screen is really small and it's difficult to see for me. So I'm going to go over here and double click this arrow, click that double arrow, and then it opens it up bigger for me. So man, this is messy. This is overwhelming. What in the heck am I looking at? Well, if I go up here and there we go. I clicked in the first row where it says message. I'm going to get these two arrows and I can sort. It's going to put it in alphabetical order. Makes it very easy to clean up. I can see everything right here. There may be things that I'm not super concerned about. There may be things that don't seem right to me. One of the things that I always am looking for are values. So if not values for hemodynamics, but ICU hours, vent hours, and I don't know why this thing is scrolling so much, OR time, things like that, where I shouldn't ever really be out of a range. This is saying to me that my ICU hours seem to be lesser or greater than the usual range of 1 to 300 hours. If it's over, this patient very well could have died right when they got out of surgery, which might be why they're less than 1 hour. Or this patient, very unusual for an ICU patient to be in the ICU greater than 300 hours. So I'm probably going to want to check this out. I can click on this blue link here. And if I'm an uploader, if I have a third-party vendor software, it'll open a read-only form. And I can go to those fields and verify if I entered it correctly. I may have entered an extra 0 before a decimal point, or I may have just transposed my numbers when I was entering it. So I'm going to check that out. If I did, in fact, make an error on my upload from my vendor software, I am going to verify the time in my EHR, and then I'm going to go back into my vendor software, update it in there, and then upload a small file, a small .dat file that includes this surgery date, whatever surgery date this is. So back into the IQVIA platform, so it updates that record. So I would just scroll through here, check out anything that looks wonky, and make the updates as needed. Now to get back to that screen, there's this double arrow here, or there's this double arrow here, and it takes me right back to the harvest summary report. I would check out any other, if I had any errors here, I would check those out as well. So that's that one. Okay, and then that's the first report I'm going to check out, is the harvest summary, because I want my data as clean as possible. Then I'm going to go over to the missing variable report, and the same thing, I'm just going to look at that same time frame, the January 1st through January 31st. And I'm going to do this for all of the months that are that are going to be analyzed, just because I'm a little obsessive with that. So I would look at all of the months to be included, but you can certainly, if you're comfortable with where you left your cleanup from last harvest, you can just move forward and look at the new OR dates that are included in this harvest. So the missing variable report will load. It's going to look like this. For general thoracic, you have analyzed, non-analyzed, major, and minor. So Leanne went over this. We have analyzed. I'm more concerned about my analyzed major procedures. And I don't have anything missing. So let's just for fun, let's look at everything and I can see what my missing variable summary. So I chose, you'll see that this is, it says the previous version, which is 2.41. That's because that's the version that was active January 1st through January 31st of 2021. Remember, that's the small time frame I chose. It's the same surgery year. And then it's just going to show me what I have missing. My data looks pretty clean. So I don't have a whole lot of things, but this is where I would kind of pick up on, I don't know why my mortality date is missing.
Yeah,
But these are-
Carol, that's because there's not a parent field for mortality date. So I get that question often, is like 100%, you know, all of my patients are missing mortality date, and they're like, well, there is no mortality date because they're alive. That's because there is no parent for mortality date. So
Okay.
if the patient's alive, it'll still be reported as missing data.
Okay,
And
but
we're
we fixed
making
that
that
in.
change. We're making that change. Remember, I think the vendors also got notified related to taking away to updating that mortality date. So that same change would be applied to the MBR once that's in.
Okay, good news. And we fixed that in version 5.21, Leanne.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we have certain things are missing here, and nothing that looks big to me, but I'm a little concerned if I submit social security numbers, and this is just an example. If I submit social security numbers on everybody and I'm missing 3 cases, I might want to really go back and check that I didn't have social security numbers on those patients. So that's how that works. And when you click on this, the records are going to populate down here, the same functionality. You click on the blue link. For those who have a third-party vendor, it will be a read-only form. For direct data entry, you would be able to update right in it's a read-write form, so you'd be able to update right in this form. And so once I'm happy here with my missing variable summary report, I'm going to go over to, I remember I popped this screen out. I need to switch back over to general thoracic. I'm going to go back into, or not back into, I'm going to do my final check, which is kind of the, I'm happy with this data. I don't need to do any more with it. Check. And this is the participant dashboard. This is the non-analyzed raw data. There's different options here. You can select reporting period. I don't care for this option, but some folks are really used to that, and you can certainly use this if you'd like. But I like working, as I said, in small increments. So I'm going to do the January 1 through January 31st again here. You have to make sure you select procedures. Again, I like working in small increments, so I'm probably more important to me are my esophageal cancer cases and my lung cancer cases. I'm going to start with my lung cancer cases, apply parameters, and I closed it out for some reason on there. Okay, so I'm going to apply parameters, and I got this report. So this is the participant dashboard report. You'll see over on the left-hand side, it's broken down by sections. Demographics, your pre-op section, your operative, lung cancer specific, esophageal cancer specific, post-op events, discharge and quality measures. This is where I can confirm my case counts. So remember, I chose just to look at the lung cancer cases. My number of cases is in this first row here, 17. am also going to be able to, we'll be able to see missingness here. You have to be careful because there's two scrollers. There's one for the main screen and then there's one inside the report. So I usually don't scroll. I usually click and drag on this one here and just make sure there's nothing that stands out to me that looks off. Pre-op evaluations, so demographics, pre-op evaluations, these are pretty important because of the risk model variables. So you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of missingness here and that the data is accurate. This is how we assess your outcomes and how we risk adjust it. So you're comparing apples to apples. If you miss collecting or you decide that you don't want to give it a whole lot of your attention and you kind of skim over the risk variables, you're actually hurting your site's outcomes by doing that. So make sure that you collect these demographics, pre-op evaluations accurately and as best you can, so you get all the credit that your hospital deserves for the sick patients that you're caring for. So I don't see a whole lot of missingness. Well, we already know about the missingness. I don't see anything that looks very off. I had a small number of cases, 17 for this month. So I might be able, that actually might be a pretty busy site, but I might be able just to say, yeah, I remembered that I had 2 TIAs that I abstracted and that seems right. Or I might say, I don't remember having any TIAs. I better check to make sure I coded that correctly. Or I remember that one patient who had diabetes or the guy who had an MI. I might say things like that to myself as I'm looking for that and just make sure that it's recognizable. I recognize it. Same thing, operative. You just go through all of these pages and they'll be pretty helpful to you. So that's how I'm going to clean up there. My post-op events is also very important because I want to make sure I didn't accidentally code anything that didn't happen. I want to make sure I coded everything that, everything that's collected, that I capture that, and that I didn't accidentally make a mistake somewhere. So I'm just going to go scroll through here to make sure, nothing really weird looks off. And these are all your post-op complications. Your surgical site infections, you're probably going to want to be very careful there. Make sure you captured everything accurately. And then I'm going to go down to my discharge, and this is where your mortality fields are going to be at. And this is how you're going to verify that you're within that 2% or less. And the fields that we look at are the mortality, the DC mortality status, and the 30-day, right, Leanne? So I'm going to double check this discharge status. I'm going to make sure, if this number says that I had 2 patients who died, I better, I really want to make sure that those patients really did leave the hospital deceased and that I didn't accidentally code them incorrectly. I'm also going to check for my missingness here. So this is where you'll see your 2% or less is what you're aiming for. And it's a combination of this field and the MT 30-day stat. So the status at 30 days after discharge is this last one. It may be something we can work with IQVIA on providing as a combination of those.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That calculates the total missingness. So you can see that in one spot. That way you don't have to do math. But so there's that. This is where you're going to check it. Missing and unknown, remember, missing and unknown both equals missingness. So if you have something that's left blank, it's going to count towards your missingness. So just be aware of that.
And just to clarify, that's status at 30 days after surgery, not discharge.
Oh, sorry.
That's
right.
Okay.
Status at 30 days after surgery, not discharge. It's the 30 days following surgery. So that's where I'm going to check that. And then your quality measures tabs, which we're not no longer, I don't think we're reporting on this separately, but
yeah,
in the new version. But
Carol, Kelly had a quick question when you were up in the post-op events. She had asked if how to export the patient detail for the post-op events. I didn't know if you could show that real quick.
So I think that's a good question. And I don't know if I'm the best one, but I can, I might be able, Melanie might be able to guide my hand. I want to say
She
Um,
Mel had to drop off, but I think Joe is still on. I think Joe could probably guide us a
Yeah,
little bit.
so under the file tab is the export, and you can do it to image, PDF, PowerPoint, or Excel. So I think, I don't know what this looks like. I haven't done it before, but I know that, yeah, there's my
Yeah,
mouse is really acting wonky. Oops. All pages, active page, active visualization. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but this is where you can export it into, Excel. And just pay attention to the different features here, because I think you could probably export it very nicely if you choose the right features. And this is something I think we're going to have to ask. We're going to have to ask our IQVIA team to provide maybe best tips, or if somebody has best tips, maybe we could do that on another webinar.
yeah, I think that would be good for our next webinar.
And same thing, when you go here, you can, an active page, I think it will cut it off if it's not, I think it takes a screenshot and exports it to PDF. So
Yeah, Kelly, if you could reach out, again, like I said, Carol and I aren't the best with the exporting portion because we don't use
Yeah.
it that often. But if you could reach out to tech support, Melanie had to drop off the call. She had an appointment to get to. But definitely someone from her team, Joe, someone from tech support could definitely walk you through that and could give you some tips and probably save you some time. So
yeah, sorry, I can't be much help with that.
yeah, we're not good with the export part.
Yeah. But when you click on it under my site, under my site, it will show you the cases and the numbers that go with it,
Yeah.
with your patient IDs. The only other thing I could suggest is just taking a screenshot if you're trying to clean it up and you don't want to have multiple screens open. My suggestion would be to have your vendor software open while you're doing this, and your EHR open while you're doing this, and go into the patient ID in your vendor software after you check out the fields here. And that's the other thing I wanted to show you. So once you go into your vendor software and you verify it within your EHR, then just re-upload a small .dat file to include the cases that you've corrected. The other thing I wanted to show you is what Annie touched on in her presentation, I think last month, is I just went back home in the library section. There's a really nice document, and I'm so glad Annie pointed this out because I thought it was really very helpful, and I just have to find it. It's this critical errors and warnings list, and it will download. It's a pretty large Excel file. It'll download and it'll provide you. Let's see if it'll open for me. It's going to be very small. Hold on. It'll provide you a list for the previous two versions and the current version of the critical errors and warnings. And it will give you the logic that goes with those and the field names that go into each of those. So you can easily find where you need to look on those data collection forms. I know that's real small. I don't think it's too many steps. I think it's very similar to when you had the PDF DQR. You had everything written out the same way. Right now, it's just that it's in an electronic form versus a paper form. So it's pretty similar. These tools were not available, and you had to go searching when we had the paper DQFs for where the issues were. So if we're looking at like 2.41 errors, I guess that's the only warning we have there. You'll see if we're looking at these are the things that are going to show up as errors for your
Those are the required fields.
yeah, and this is similar to the one. This one is the MT30 stat, and it says status after 30 days is required. Please enter a value. So it will fire on that. There were other things we had. Let me see if we provided it where that we were more logical. I think this is 5.21. We got a little bit, maybe we made all of those warnings instead. I don't know. I don't know where they went.
I don't know.
Oh, here we go. So we have things like the OR exit time. If we're looking on row 28, the OR exit time cannot be more than 24 hours after OR entry time. So this is assuming, they probably an error happened in typing it in.
Yeah, the data inconsistencies.
So it'll tell you the fields that you need to look at: OR entry time, OR exit time. That's a pretty simple one. Some of the other ones are a little bit more complicated, but and this exclamation point means not null. So OR entry time was not missing, and OR exit time was not missing, and OR exit time is greater than OR entry time plus 24 hours or 1 day. But that's how you can find the fields that you want to check to do your correction. And I think that's all I have.
That's it. Carol, does this information, Mindy had asked at AQO that was mentioned that a data map will be posted somewhere.
I think that might be the map that you showed, Leanne.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what that is.
And Mindy, if you could email me and refresh my memory. It was a long week. It was a very long week, Mindy. Let's see here. And then Kelly had asked if we're going to have surgeon level reports for GTSD.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and not at this time. I don't know of any surgeon level reporting coming down the pike for GTSD.
So that's all I got. Thanks everybody for staying on extra with us today.
Thank you, Carol. But yeah, if so.
Oh, Ruth was going to provide a data map.
Oh,
I think, are they talking about so mine was for the audits, like how we created an audit process. I've got that file.
okay.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, Carol. I know we're 10 minutes after, so thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone that stayed on. If you have any questions that we weren't able to get answered, or if you think of something afterwards, just email me and we'll get we'll follow up with you and get an answer to your question. But that's all that I have for today. So we will pick up next time, November 10th, with our monthly webinar. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Carol, IQVIA team.
Yeah,
Ruth,
thank you. Great job today. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks, everyone. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks, Ruth.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You do. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.